Hi, everyone. Crista Cowan here. I am the corporate genealogist at Ancestry. Some of you may know me as the Barefoot Genealogist from the Ancestry YouTube series by the same name. I'm really excited to be joining you today to participate in the Getting Started series. My presentation is going to be connecting to relatives with ancestry trees. We don't have a lot of time, and I have a ton I want to share with you, so let's go ahead and dive right in. On Ancestry, there are more than 100 million family trees. And one of the reasons for this is because on Ancestry, your tree is your tree. Everybody has their own tree, and we have a really strong philosophy around privacy and control. We always want you to have full control over your own data and full control over the privacy of what you choose to share or not to share. So on Ancestry, your tree is your tree, and no one can make any changes without your permission expressly. Let's talk a little bit about privacy settings on Ancestry, because this is going to make a difference in maybe how you choose to share or not share certain pieces of information. And I want to make sure that you understand where to find those and how you control those. So when you are viewing your tree, if you click on your tree name, you're going to see an option there on that menu for tree settings. And then when you get to the tree settings page, you're going to have a tab there for privacy settings. So that's what we're going to take a look at first here. Under your privacy settings, you have three options. Now, the default option is public. And what it means when you have a public family tree on Ancestry is that anyone with an Ancestry subscription can see the dead people in your tree. So even if your tree is public, there is still a degree of privacy. For example, all information about living people is automatically privatized by Ancestry. So you'll be able to see it because it's your tree. But if anybody else on Ancestry finds your tree, for those living people, they'll just see the word private. They won't be able to see any photos or documents or names or dates or places or anything about that particular person in your tree. So anyone, public just means anyone with an Ancestry subscription can see the dead people in your tree. Then under private, there are two settings. One is what we call private searchable. And what this means is that the dead people in your tree are going to appear in search results. So if somebody is searching for your great-great-grandfather, they're going to get a search result that says, this information that you just entered in search shows up in this tree over here. And then if they click on that, it's going to take them to a privacy wall that's going to say, this tree is private. If you want more information about this person or this tree, you're going to need to ask. And then they can send you a message, and you can choose to either share just that piece of information with them, or you can choose to share your whole tree. We'll get into that in just a minute. Okay, so private searchable, your tree will show up in search results, but your permission is required for other people to see more information. And then the final tree privacy setting is what we call private unsearchable. And if you select this, it means that only you will even know your tree exists. So the name of your tree will not appear on your Ancestry profile page. Nobody in your tree will appear in Ancestry search results. Now, this also means that Ancestry will not index your tree, which means that if you're using any of the DNA tools or anything that requires collaboration with other users that is automated, you won't be able to participate in that with that tree, because again, that information is, you've decided you don't want it to be searchable or available. So public, private searchable, private unsearchable, you check on that in your tree settings. You can change this at any time. Again, under that privacy settings tab. Just be careful that that's what you really want to do. And then also recognize that while the change happens immediately, for example, if I go from public to private unsearchable, it takes us several weeks to remove all of the people in your tree from the Ancestry search index. And so your tree will be unsearchable, meaning it disappears and nobody can see anything about it, but it will still show up in search results for a few weeks. Okay, Next, let's talk about sharing, because this is where collaboration gets really exciting for me when you start thinking about the different ways that you can share your tree and who you can share it with and how you can work together. So we're going to go right back to those tree settings under the name of your tree, only this time instead of selecting the privacy settings tab, we're going to select the sharing tab. Couple of things to know about sharing. So first of all, you can share your tree with anyone. No subscription is required. As a matter of fact, no subscription is required for you to have a tree on Ancestry. That is a completely free portion of the site. You can build a tree, you can add and edit your tree, you can search. I think we've got about 700 free databases now that you can search without a subscription. So the tree portion of Ancestry is actually free, which means you can share your tree with anybody and they do not need a subscription either, okay? And you can share your tree regardless of your privacy setting. So your tree can be public, private searchable, or private unsearchable, and you can still choose to share it with anyone that you want. You have full control when you share over the level of access, and we'll talk about those roles in just a minute. You have full control over whether that specific person you shared your tree with can see information about living people or not. And you have full control over when you can remove access. So you can change their access at any time. You can also remove their access at any time. Now, we say no subscription required, but I just want to make sure that this is clear because sometimes this gets a little confusing. They do need to have a free registered guest account on Ancestry. Usually that just means they just need to give us their email address and sign up so that they have a login and password in order to get in to view the tree. But they don't have to pay for the record access, which is what the subscription pays for. Okay, so when you click on that sharing tab under your tree settings, this is part of my screen. I've cut off the names of the email addresses of the people I've shared my tree with. I just wanted to keep that private. So this is the right-hand side of the screen. So on this screen is where you can go to invite people to your tree. So you can click invite, and that will give you the opportunity to put in their email address. Now, if they already have an Ancestry account, you're going to want to use the email address they have associated with that account. So if it's somebody that if it's a cousin you just met on Ancestry, you're going to want to make sure you've sent messages to them. We'll get there. You're going to send messages back and forth to them and get their email address so that you can send it to the correct email address. You can also invite people two other ways. You can invite them by email. You can invite them by username. So if they already have an Ancestry account and you just know their username, you can invite them. But again, I strongly encourage you to have some kind of communication with them. Every once in a while, I'll get a tree invitation from somebody I've never even spoken to before. So my theory is they've seen something in my tree that maybe matched something in their tree, and they're sharing their tree with me either because they have more information they want to share with me, or they think I might have more information for them. I'm not sure because, again, they just sent me an invitation and didn't communicate with me at all through messaging. And so I encourage you strongly to message other users before you just share your tree with them. So you can share by email address, you can share by Ancestry username if they already have an account. And then the third way that you can share when you click that invite people link is you can generate a link. Now that is a one-time use link. So you copy that, you generate the link, and then you copy it, and then you can email it. So let's say your cousin is not on Ancestry. You want to send them a Facebook message or an email directly. You can just paste that link directly into that message to them, and then they can click that link to get their free Ancestry registered guest account and now have access to your tree. But again, that link is just a one-time use link. So you can't send that link out to 10 of your cousins. You'd have to generate a link for each of them. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so that's how you invite people. Username, email address, link. When you invite them, you have to also then select a role for that person. Now, here are the different kinds of roles. The first one is guest. All a guest can do is just view your tree. So that's just like if your tree is public on Ancestry and I'm an Ancestry subscriber, I can do a search and I can find your tree. And essentially, I have by default, because your tree is public and I am already an Ancestry subscriber, I have guest access to your tree. Okay. So anybody, again, anybody can have access to a tree. They do not have to have an Ancestry subscription, but only people with subscriptions can view public trees. So you might need to share your tree as a guest to those cousins or siblings or other family members who don't have an Ancestry subscription. Okay. The second level of access, the second role, so guest, then contributor. And a contributor can add information to your family tree. So you can see down here at the bottom, I've got this contributor. What you don't see is that that's my mom. I love my mom dearly, but she's a little bit technologically challenged sometimes. And so I didn't want to give her full editor access because I didn't want her to be able to mess anything up. She doesn't want to be able to mess anything up. But my mom is a brilliant photographer, and she has learned how to use some photo editing software programs, and we have lots of old photos. And so as a contributor, she can actually go through our old family photos, upload them to my family tree, and make sure they're attached to the right person and that they have the right date and location and description information, and attach them to multiple people in my tree. So she can do any of that. She can add information to my tree. She just can't edit or change anything. So that's the contributor role. And then the final role is editor. And you want to be really careful with this because an editor can do anything in your tree that you can do. And so they can delete things, they can edit things, they can move things around. So just make sure you trust the person that you give editor access to. So again, here on my list, you can see I've got 2 people who have editor access. The second one down here is actually me. I have another account on Ancestry that I use for testing, and so I gave myself editor access. But this one right here, this is my dad. And my dad and I have... oh, so many stories. If you've spent time with me, you've probably already heard some of these stories. But for those of you who are new, let me just share with you briefly about the way that my dad and I collaborate on family history. So my dad, I'm actually going to switch over here so you can see me. There we go. So my dad is the one who really got me started in family history. When my parents were young newlyweds, they went away to college, and I was born while they were in school. And they were in entirely different majors, English and accounting. And they wanted to take one class together just so that they could see each other, you know, school, newlyweds, new baby, lots of stuff happening. So they decided to take a family history class together because that was offered at the university that they attended. And once a month, they would drive from where they were going to school up to Salt Lake City to go to the family history library. And my dad would take me in my baby carrier and shove me under the microfilm reader, and that's where I stayed. Of course, my parents take full credit for my career now. But he would talk to me, like even as an infant, he would talk to me about family history. And then my whole life, he helped me stay involved in family reunions, and he bought me my first computer and sent me to computer camp so I could learn how to use it. And I had the very first DOS-based genealogy software program when I was a teenager. And he would bring me, I grew up, actually, they left Utah when they finished school, and I grew up in California. And they would bring me to Utah to go to the family history library in the summers. I was that kid. And my dad and I would work on family history together, and, you know, scrolling through microfilm and writing things down on yellow legal pads, you know, longhand. And I loved it. And then my dad's career and our family life and things happened, and he kind of got away from family history. And I picked up that baton and ran with it full bore into a career. And so now here we are, you know, 20 some years into my career. And about 4.5 years ago, my dad and I were having a conversation, and he just said, you know, I'm getting ready to retire, and I'm looking at, you know, what I want to do. And he said, I'd really like to get back into family history, if that's okay with you. Of course it's okay with me. And so he took a DNA test, and he wanted to just really start getting back into research. So at that time, 4.5 years ago, I shared my tree with him. And because I know he's very computer literate and he picks up quickly on things, I had no qualms at all about sharing my tree with him and giving him editor access. Now, kind of the sidebar to that is that I also use Family Tree Maker as my desktop software program. And every time I sync Ancestry and Family Tree Maker, it gives me a report of what changes have been made, and I can see exactly what he's been doing. So I can make any alterations if I need to, but I've never needed to. So for the last 4.5 years, every Sunday night, my dad and I get together on the phone. He lives in Oregon. I live in Utah, so several states away, a time zone away, and I call him or FaceTime him on Sunday nights, and we're on the phone for about 3 or 4 hours working on our family tree together. So it's the same tree. I'm the owner. It's on my account. He is an editor. He can view it through his account, and we can work on the same tree together from our separate accounts. And that works out really well for both of us, because then we can do what we need to do when we need to do it without interrupting the other's workflow. And so that's been a really great thing. And originally it was just going to be a little thing. It was just going to be a help me. He wanted me to help him and figure out where he could be involved and what he could do and how to use Ancestry and Ancestry DNA. And that has turned into 4.5 years of amazing collaboration with my dad that has not only expanded our family tree and deepened our knowledge of the people in our tree, but has also brought he and I closer together. I get emotional about it, but it has brought us closer together in a way I really just did not expect, especially at this point in both of our lives. And so I'm just really grateful for that and for the opportunity that family history that family history gave us to bring us together. In that 4.5 years, we've only missed 4 Sunday nights, and I just think that's an amazing opportunity. And so maybe you can find a collaboration partner, somebody that you can work with. You can see a whole bunch of my cousins and various family members have access. Let's switch back over here, have access to my tree and all different degrees of access to my tree. But my dad's the one that I collaborate with the closest. Okay, last couple of tips here. You do, as I said, have full control over who can see the information about living people in your tree. And as you can see, there are a few people I have not given that access to because I don't want them to have all of my, nephews and nieces' birth dates and all of that detailed information about those living people in my tree. But for the most part, my parents, my siblings, obviously they know the birth dates of their own kids, I've given that access to. You can change that at any time. And then you also have the ability to remove anyone's access at any time. So if you've decided they've seen enough or whatever the case may be, you can do that. Okay. One of the questions that comes up a lot when you start getting into trees is which trees are my trees and which trees are other people's trees, because once you start having access to a whole lot of them, it gets a little confusing. So under trees, you have a menu item if you scroll down called Create and Manage Trees. And when you go there, you're going to see 2 tabs, My Trees and Trees Shared with Me. So your trees are the ones that you're creating. Now, I'm a big fan of one tree. All of my ancestors and their descendants are in one tree. But I have other trees on my account that I've done for friends or neighbors or I have a research tree. It's private, unsearchable, and I do a lot of things in there just to try to keep track of things before I copy it over into my main tree. And then trees shared with me are those trees that other people have shared with me. And I can see the name of the tree and who owns the tree and what my role is in the tree. And at any time, I can remove my access to that tree. Now, when you're viewing your tree, if it's your tree, you're not going to see anything up here by your tree name. If it's someone else's tree that you're viewing, you're going to see the name of the tree owner, and then you're going to see your role, if any, in that particular tree, okay? When you click on the name of the tree owner, you're going to be taken to the person's profile page, and this is where you get to message other users and, do some of that cousin bait, cousin fishing, send out messages. My biggest advice to you there is be brief in your first message, but not too brief. Make sure you tell them the name of the tree or the name of the DNA match, and be specific about what you're asking for, but don't write a ton in that first message. And then for those of you who are new, be sure to check your messages. Read and respond to them, send messages to other users. That is probably the greatest benefit of collaboration on Ancestry. Ancestry has a really robust genealogy community. You can follow us on Facebook. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel or our blog or all of the above in order to stay up to date on all of the information and to participate in that community. Ask questions about different things about how to use the site or about your family history research. And then, of course, you can follow me on social media as well, on either Facebook or Instagram or both, and I hope that you will. Thank you so much for letting me participate in your Roots Tech experience and for this Getting Started series. If you have any questions, you can send them to me through direct message at either of those social media channels. Until next time, I'm Crista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.